Hello, welcome to our YouTube channel or Facebook, wherever you're joining us. I've got Brandon with me here today. I think the last few Fridays it's just been me, and we're hopefully going to be having an awesome conversation with Jennifer about exiting your business. Before we welcome her on, let me give you a little bit of a sneak peek about this whole idea of exiting your business and why Brandon and I would have a conversation about this. So, when we were starting our first business and writing our business plans and everything, we thought we're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives. And that actually kept us going, even when everyone would have told us to give up, right? We felt like it was part of our destiny, what we were supposed to do, part of our purpose. And even when the money side wasn't working, it was like, no, we can't give up. Maybe we're a little just too stubborn or something, but we kept going. And we made some shifts because we're like, we have to make this business work for us if we're going to do it for 40 years or more, right? If we're going to do this, we have to make the business work for us. And so we started making those shifts. They happened, micro adjustments little by little. And what we discovered later was that those same shifts are the same exact shifts that helped us have a business that was sellable. And I did an interview with Jennifer on her podcast telling our stories. So be sure, I think it's going to come out March or April sometime on Entrepods, the podcast that Jennifer hosts. We've got the full name and everything in the description of this video. But Jennifer has helped a lot of businesses prepare for exit. She's got a interesting perspective that we're hoping to bring to you all today. So Brandon, thanks also for joining me. Glad that you're here. Anything you'd add about our story?
Well, I think we ended up going at it backwards, right? So we thought we were going to have this business forever. And like most entrepreneurs, we'll pay ourselves eventually. We'll do this eventually, and so on and so forth. And I think that was a hard thing for us.
Yeah.
There she is. So that was a challenge, right? But now, hindsight, I wish I would have kind of the idea began with the end in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wish.
So let's go ahead and welcome Jennifer. We're going to dive right in here to get to know her. So Jennifer, welcome to
Hi.
Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. Glad to
I
have
know.
you.
I know. I was trying to set up my thing. It's odd. I have a full studio, but for some reason, this interface is odd. So anyway,
Okay. Well, we're all here now.
I
And
look
we're
very
live.
bronzed.
You look great. We were just telling a little bit of our story and why we think talking about exiting your business is very important. Before we jump into that and your unique insights there, we've got your bio in the description of this video, but would love to have a little sneak peek of like your story with money, how that, started as a kid and a little bit of how it's changed over time, especially as you've approached the business world.
Well, I grew up in an upper middle class background, but I come from a single parent who was an entrepreneur and business owner, and so they were silent generation. My mother, so it was always put your nose to the grindstone, work hard, save everything, pay everything in cash. Basically, everything that I was taught growing up, it doesn't actually work. It's not how wealthy people think about money, or even people that are upper middle class. So my journey and I had to relearn everything. And a lot of that started as I worked with companies. So then when I'm working with companies on the back end as a consultant, which I've done as a crisis intervention consultant for over 20 years, that's very traditional. So those same things kept with me as I'm going and restructuring different companies. And then as I became more entrepreneurial, started to work with more startups. About a decade ago, I started scaling virtual companies. So people that had teleprofessionals, and that was, a shift that I thought we should make. It's better for the environment. It's better for everybody. So, and now the whole other rest of the world's catching up to that. But in that process, I started meeting people in the digital space, digital marketing. I started to go to different events, put on different events, meeting big names like Kevin Harrington and Dan Merrill, and finding out about real estate, and realizing very quickly that the way I think about money is not how wealthy people think about money. And it's actually quite a limiting belief. And so I would say it's 10 years, and I am still learning and pushing against my own limiting beliefs in it, and pushing against fears that I had so that I can move forward.
Yeah, and it's always an experience and like a continual shifting, right? To have that growth mindset and always be learning. So as you have experienced people in all different levels of business, all different kinds of business, when it comes to creating a business that's healthy and thinking about exits, where does like that kind of story with money and money mindset get in people's way as they're like even approaching business and life in general?
Well, I say the biggest mistake most people make is when they think about an exit, is they think about an exit when they're desperate for money. And you should be thinking about your exit when you're starting the company. Where is this going to go? Who is this company? So I work with, what I do now is I work with businesses if they're building their exit strategy, but I also work with businesses to get them funding or investors. And I also work with investors who have poor performing assets, and I'll go in and find out where the rot is in the company in a crisis intervention way, fix it all so that they can be stronger. If you're not in a position of strength in your company, meaning things are going pretty well, you've got a solid beat on things, you've got your SOPs in place, you're making an income, then you are in a very poor position to look at business buyers. You are not going to get the best rates from anyone. You're going to be getting not as good quality buyers, and a lot of other things. So I would say that that's the biggest thing is waiting until you're like desperate. This should be something you should do right now. However, this doesn't mean if you're desperate right now, you're screwed. That's not what I'm saying. You can be desperate right now, but there are ways that you can get electricity and a little bit of momentum in, and you can get that fire a little bit back in the company to where you become more attractive. So I don't want you to think that, all hope is lost. It's never lost. You can change your story at any time. You are the architect and writer of your own story, even in your business.
Yeah. Well said. I love that, Jennifer. There's so much there. I want to unpack this idea. It seems like you've done some turnarounds and helped when they are in that place where they feel like there's no hope. What do people do then? Maybe tell us a story of what it took for someone to turn around and get to the place where they had options.
Okay. Well, this is a weird story, but this is very, very indicative. When things are not going right, usually, okay, so okay, I'm just going to say this and you'll have to just whatever, bleep me or something. But usually it happens, somebody's getting screwed along the way. They're either doing the screwing or they're getting screwed. And usually it's the people closest to you. So here's like one company. I go in, the wife was I would say the artistic genius. It was her baby, and the husband ran the back end, the operations, finances. And when I came in there, this is the story I got. If only Bob could do the sales properly, then, Bob was supposed to get us these better brochures. He made some up. They're not good, and blah, 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 blah. Basically they had this scapegoat, but everybody else loved Bob, and they couldn't understand why. And they couldn't figure it out. So Bob was the scapegoat. The sister, so her sister had come into the business, and there was a lot of unsaid things There was tension, there was everything else. And I had to be kind of a fly on the wall for a little bit. And we had, some petty thievery and things going on. So there was cameras that were put up. And not long before it, the staff kind of said, hey, and it was just weird because no one would tell me, but they did show me, because when we put up the new cameras, there is the husband and the sister of the owner going at it, high definition. So, and they were talking, it was video and everything on it. And basically their plan was to take it from the wife. They were in love. She didn't know what she was doing. They could do so much of better. And it had nothing to do with Bob. They were sabotaging everything. They were bringing this toxic thing in. And the owner, when presented with this, like, this is what's happening, you're not going to be happy, blah, blah, blah. Her first instinct, well, it's because you're here. You've stressed them out. Now, this had been going on before me, but the first initial, because what was I doing? I was saying, not only is your business not going to recover, we've got to pivot, we've got to do other things now, but you're going to have to pivot in your personal life. Like, this is bad. So you've lost your husband, your sister, the ultimate betrayal, losing that is too much. So I wasn't upset with that at first, because I knew it was going to be, that knee-jerk kill the messenger reaction. And eventually they didn't do everything I told them to do as I was packing up, because I got fired. I had to leave. No, and all this. But they did do some of the things. So it wasn't as good as it could have been had they not been so embroiled in grief. And I still, thinking back on it, what could I have done to make that a little bit better? And I don't think I could have, but they got through that, because there are things that you can do. If you're really the person that's putting it all together, you can redo it again. They did take some of it. They tried to take all the clients. They didn't last very long. And, this person was able to move on and pivot and do other things. So one of the things I say is be open to anything. Be open to, especially if you have family or very close friends in small businesses, that you're not supposed to do that, but everybody does that. And just be a little bit open to the fact that you're going to learn things you don't really want to learn. And a lot of times it has to do with your boundaries, what you've put into place. Some of the biggest strides companies made are always when the owner goes through some personal growth. And that is very difficult too. When you up-level yourself and you put in boundaries and you start doing little things like your schedule. I mean, one of the first things I'll do is sit down and say, now show me your calendar. Now, how do people book time with you? Do they just walk on in? And that's for the kids, that's for the husband, that's for everybody. Okay, so that's not going to happen anymore. Those are very tough. It's tough because now you're having to you might have a business partner who's used to just coming on in. Well, they can't do that anymore, because you're going to start making some money. We're going to start really doing things a little bit different. And your time needs to be respected, so you can work on the highest, best use, your most effective hourly rate items. Right. That's what we're switching. And so those are some of the things that we do too. We figure out how to do it. We figure out how to approach clients. I try to make sure that they don't have any clients that are bringing in more than 15% of their revenue. If I'm looking at somebody and they've got a 10, 15, 20, I mean, I've seen people who had one big client and they had a bunch of little ones because they couldn't take them on because it's one big client. And it's only because they didn't put the boundaries in place to be able to expand and bring in other people. And so we start making those shifts too.
This sounds a lot like Kitchen Nightmares. You ever watch that show with
No.
So Gordon would go into these
Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gordon
Now I've
Ramsay.
heard of him, and he doesn't say you're fired. That was Donald Trump. But what does he say? He yells at people. He calls them
donkeys.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
But he would go into these restaurants and find out he's more of a therapist than anything, and just seeing. And you might like Kitchen Nightmares because it sounds exactly like that.
It might not be very entertaining. It might be too close to reality.
Like work. Too much like work. I don't know. It's fun when you can get out to the other end, but digging in from the front. And not all of it's like that. Sometimes it's just little tweaks, that have to be that have to be made. Sometimes it's just reminding people why they got into this business to make it more fun. Or, you know, a lot of times, you know, sometimes people don't really want to sell, and it's not telling them, but showing them how selling can get them to their next greatest thing. Like right now, we're in the big resignation. Everybody calls it the big reset or the great, we don't want to go back to work. And really, there's a ridiculous amount of people, this overwhelming amount of people who are retiring, but they're not really needing to retire. So we're about to see the largest transfer of wealth from boomers and even existing silent generation onto millennials and Gen Z. I still think Gen X is going to get cut out of that deal because we've been cut out of everything else. But that's just my Gen X bitterness, my bitter Betty. But it's still okay, right? Because these generations really, really need it. And now is a great time to sell, especially if you can go and pivot yourself into a mentorship capacity with the company and offer that. So if you have something that's going really well and you can sell, just think about that opportunity for future generations. And even if you don't want to mentor anymore, you can take that money and you can reinvest it into your next big adventure, whatever that's going to be. And that is going to help the economy. I really think that mindset of prosperity and it is going to be the thing that can save us, because we're not relying on the government. We're taking what we built, and we did it with our hands, you know, and taking that and making that good for other people in this sort of, and taking back the power from these mega corporations that are just built on a kind of slavery model. You know, oh, you won't work for nothing? Okay, we'll just go to a country where they don't have human labor laws, and they will, where they don't ask us to care for the environment. I mean, we're seeing that in the pipeline. If you actually look at pipeline areas and different things like that, they've cut off a pipeline where we have so many laws about the environment and the EPA and human rights and how many hours you're allowed to work. I mean, we take care of our oil and gas workers, and they're shifting it to countries where people are dying at the job, and they just push them over and they get a new person. And nobody seems to have, I have a problem with that, a big problem with that, you know? And so this is a way that the private industry can say, you know what, we're going to take back our power. There's all these people that are not working, or they're trying to shift. They're trying to get their side hustle. I've got this business I've been running for 30 years. I'm going to teach them how to do it. And we're just going to compete.
Yeah.
I love that.
So can I jump in? So I've been thinking a lot about like ancient stories, and part of the reason that they've survived is because they have so much to teach us. And as I was listening to you, and kind of the story that was coming to mind is the whole Moses and the Egyptian Pharaoh, and how Moses, you know, kind of that the Israelites, the Jewish nation, was trying to do the Great Resignation. They're trying to get out of Egypt, and Pharaoh was hardening his heart, right? And like, I just start imagining, what if Pharaoh had been open to change? What if Pharaoh had a growth mindset? How would that story have totally played out differently? And yeah, sure, if you're like religious, it's part of God's story, like things happen for a reason, all that kind of stuff. But it's fun to think about, well, what's the moral of these stories? What are they teaching us? And how can we learn from them? So I like to study that kind of thing. And so I was thinking about that. And then I was thinking, what if Pharaoh had become the mentor of, you know, this whole nation and taught them all these great Egyptian technologies that had been developed and helped them, you know, go to their new land? Like, that's the vision that you're casting there, Jennifer. And that's amazing. Thank you so much for kind of inspiring that in me, and thinking about like, yeah, wow.
Rome used to do that before they collapsed.
Yeah.
I mean, you became a Roman. In fact, Egypt used to do that. I mean, a part of when you look back at how Egypt was, when you look at Egypt, you know, they had every color of person. Racism didn't exist at all on the way that we're thinking of it in our modern terms. It was a completely different world. If you were an Egyptian, it didn't matter what color you're in. You could have been, you know, the darkest Nubian king or the lightest red hair, green eyed Ptolemy. You know, it didn't matter. You were Egyptian. Egyptian meant something. Rome adopted that too, because they saw the power in that. And conquered people, you can't be conquered forever. That is not a place that people want to be. They get sick of it. They get sick of it. I mean, look at our mandates and everything we're going through now. We're getting sick of it, right? After a while, you get sick of oppression. You get sick of not having a voice. You get sick of not being a part of the community and leading when people need to lead. And so knowing that's a human trait, these huge, massive civilizations, basically all of them at some point developed a system that transcended the tribal culturalism and thought on a bigger scale. That had bigger problems. Rome, let us build the all roads lead to Rome, right?
Mhm.
And you had these incredible aqueducts and these incredible systems, and it was this symbol of just look at we've accomplished. And your family could have been slaves or something, just 2 generations before, but now you were a Roman and that meant something to you. And the Egyptians had the same way on it. So yeah, if they would have done that at that time, who knows, we'd be flying around in spaceships. We'd have flying cars right now.
Yeah.
Everything would be cool.
Something I've been thinking a lot about it again as we were starting our business and selling our business, and oftentimes as business owners in general, if you're a small business owner, people think you make lots of money and you're loaded, right? Because you're the business owner. And what I've found is a lot of business owners aren't getting paid that well. Maybe even their staff is getting paid more. Again, a small business, not in a micro business, maybe is what I might say, because our definition of small business is pretty big, actually, if we want to look at it. But these business owners who have tried and were told, hey, the entrepreneurship and business ownership is the lifeblood of America. We want you to continue and do all this, and we aren't actually surviving and sustainable. And that's what I saw in our business as we were building our coffee shop and realizing, hey, we need to pay ourselves at least a livable wage. And that was a hard thing to do because, people would even say, oh, but you love your business and you love your job. That's why you do it. So I'm like, yeah, I love it. I still want to get paid. I still want to not eat ramen all day. And how do you balance that with those small business owners who aren't? And that's why the profit first method is so powerful to us, to build in the right systems in advance. So how do you help people change that mindset when they're like, yeah, well, I'm going to keep reinvesting and eventually I'm going to sell it and therefore it'll make a lot of money and that's my retirement. How do you help somebody think through that?
I help them think through it through their effective hourly rate. So what we do is we go through their projects and we go through what they're doing and we figure out what they are actually bringing in, like what is their rate. So most owners, even if you're at $25 an hour, I mean, if you look at some people, some consultants, when you look at what they've done for that project to be able, minus their cost plus what they can bring in, what they're charging, and then what that effective hourly rate is, because I have a little formula that I use, some of them are $100 to $1,200, even more an hour. So what you need to do, but let's say you're barely making it and your effective hourly rate is only like $25 an hour. You still need to look at your tasks of what you're doing that day and outsource what's not at $25 an hour. Because if your effective hourly rate is $25 an hour, you need to be working on all the tasks that can bring you to $25 an hour. Whether it is, I'm going to create great content because I'm a yoga instructor. I'm just going to do 2 videos a day at 30 seconds each and do a stretch. Or I'm the graphic designer and I spend so much time just emailing people. Well, no, you can get somebody else to do that and you can create some new logos, or you can reach out and better your pitch or do something else. So that is one of the first things I'll sit down with them, their schedule, number one, because it's amazing how many people have all this time and they're so exhausted, but they don't use their time effectively. So time and then their hourly rate, what they're working on. So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. They say if you want to see where someone's values are, look at their calendar and their checkbook, and it'll show you. And it's kind of, if you want to see where there's room for improvement, room for growth, look at the same places.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say something about being hard-hearted and stubborn. When we're first starting out, when we're entrepreneurs, we're getting things rolling, we have to be that way. Would you say that that's part of actually why it's so hard to make the adjustments to move things to a better place once we get the
because
ball rolling?
entrepreneurs by nature are doers. We're hard workers.
Yeah.
We are people of action, and we also have these things in our head. If you want it done right, just do it yourself. Or I can do it just so much quicker. I just need to be doing it. Right? I can do this so easy. Why shouldn't I do it? And then what happens is you're shooting yourself into doing all of these tasks that are burning you out. And then you stop doing the tasks less and less that actually brought you joy, made you energized, made you happy, and why you decided to create whatever it was, for whether it's your coffee shop or your graphic design business or even a doctor. I did physician turnarounds, and most people are like, oh yeah, the doctors are making so much money. Well, I was doing that around the time Obamacare came. And every quarter, a record number of doctors in the AMA and the Texas Medical Board, where I'm at, were committing suicide or going bankrupt. They were in total crisis. And I can't tell you how many doctors that I worked with. And I looked at what they actually brought home. Their nurses and all their staff were actually getting paid more than they did, because they had to pay for CEs and credits, and all the prices went through the roof. Like, they couldn't just go to Walmart and order on Walmart.com tongue depressors. Now they had to go to a HIPAA compliant company. So what they normally would only legitimately should spend maybe, $1 for 100 of those little wooden things, they were having to spend $10. And it was with everything. You couldn't just print out a list to have someone sign in. You had to use some sort of HIPAA form now if you had them do that, or then you had to invest in iPads. I mean, they made all these stupid, just money sucking laws that just gave it to these certain companies that were on the end and knew that they could, get more. And it just became nuts. Right. And so there's just a lot of little things like that you can go through and figure it out. But then if you're not sitting there looking at that, it just creeps up on you until it's just nuts,
Yeah. Got to pay attention and have a game plan and actually look at things, not just
revisit it. Like look at your business plan and look at what you're doing, and like that effective hourly rate, you can look at that like every 6 months or even just once a year. Go, wow, why did that go so down? Well, and then you can start making shifts on what you do, what you provide, or even what companies that you're working with, or just pushing back, there are doctors that started pushing back and said, this is ridiculous. And guess what? These doctors pushing back got more common sense things put on the book so that they could print out a sheet as long as they had a certain type of shredder. Little things like that. They just said, hey, this is costing the patients left and right, and then patients started complaining too. So, I mean, it was a process. But, and it's not going to be that is a very difficult industry if you're in it, if you're going to go in it. It's not like if you're, not regulated. But right. No matter where you're at, there's ways you can start not getting the burnout, because what happens is that hamster wheel of activity. Oh my gosh, I have no leads. I have no way to make money. So I need to do marketing. Market. Oh gosh, all this marketing happened. Now I have these people. Now I've got to sell them. Sell. Oh, now I have all these customers. I really need to deliver a good customer experience. Deliver. Oh wow, I don't have any leads. We need to do marketing. And you never get an automated system into where you can start to grow from that. You just it's like every 3 months you're back to square one. That will burn people out so quickly, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I mean, that's in our industry and lots of industries. It's like, okay, how do we, go in that cycle and then hire the right people and all that fun stuff.
I want to kind of switch gears now. Jennifer, tell the folks that are watching a little bit about your podcast and the services you offer. I'm sure people are loving what they're hearing from you. How do they find out more and get more of what you do?
Well, you can go to entrepods.com. That's entrepods.com. You can listen right on our website. We're on every major platform. So if you go to your favorite listening platform or any social media and just put in the @ Entrepods, we'll come up. We're like everywhere. And what I do is pretty much explained right on the website. I help businesses get investors. I help them get funding if that's what they're looking for, or I help investors fix poor performing assets. So I work with startups. I have actually an online course where they can get some supplemental help for people who aren't really ready for that level yet. And that's more automated. And then I have a whole range of things. I work with a lot of other coaches too. So we even have full done for you consulting services. So if somebody came in and said, I just don't know what I don't know, I just know in a year, I want to be able to be pitching investors that are throwing money at me. And I want you to help with the marketing and write everything and do everything, then we'll just take them a year. It's some people I've done in 6 months, but usually, within a year, you are at a very strong place or they're ready to sell. And then I've had a couple of people who are like, I'm having fun again. I don't want to sell. I couldn't convince them to do it. They did. And I said, okay, but don't let it go down.
Mm-hmm.
If you start to feel like whatever, then's the time to do it,
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation. Really had a lot of fun thinking about these things, remembering some things, also seeing some fresh insight into different ways to view things. Anything else you wanted to for sure share or any other value you'd like to leave with folks today?
Yes. I would like to give everyone listening a little freebie, and I'm going to send you the link, which I don't think I did because I just finished putting my little special touches on it like this last week. But I'm going to be going on a lot of summits this year, like, the women's summits and things like that. So I'm speaking a lot this year, and I'm going to be speaking on ethical entrepreneurship. I believe it's going to change our world. And so I've created a quick little guide on how anyone can be a more ethical entrepreneur. You don't need a lot of money to do it. And really making these small shifts, I feel, will really put pressure on the people who are not doing it, because it allows us to change the world. I just really believe that it's in us small businesses coming together and saying, you know what, we're just going to do things different. We're just going to not comply on the shifts that's been taking us to this sort of not a healthy, good place that's valuing our planet or other fellow humans or our neighborhood. So yeah, I'm going to give that to you, and everybody can go in and get a free copy of it. And I think you'll like it.
Okay. If you want to find that, you can put it into the comments and we can show it on the screen too. We'll give you a minute to do that. Brandon, do you want to jump in with anything?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think as what you're sharing is really close to us, being ethical entrepreneurs and business owners. That's why the coffee shop came into play, was because of that. But also that idea of beginning with the end in mind, and knowing that sometimes it's like the business piece, because of some of debts and some of the other things, it almost could have ended our marriage actually because of all of that. And so just thinking about how do you build the best systems there, and sometimes systems are date night, right? Things like that I just think are important. And I love that is what you're sharing. And I'm telling you, make a TV show, like Gordon Ramsay, and just yell, "You're fired" or something.
No. Well, that one guy would have fired him. he was terrible, but yeah.
Yeah. So we put the link in the comments if you want to check it out there, or here it is on the screen. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your story and your wisdom with our community today. We look forward to seeing where things go, and please keep in touch.
Thank you guys for having me, and thanks everybody who's listening. I love you guys, and I love everything that you're doing, and I hope that you guys will take everything that Brandon and Amanda says to heart, because Profit First really is one of the best ways that you can get a handle on your finances and start to like move forward positively where you're not scared all the time. It's really wonderful, and they really know their stuff. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mic drop. Thank you so much.